The news on the radio sent shivers down Lee's spine. Adolf Hitler has just been named Chancellor, the most powerful position in the German government, by the aging President Hindenburg. Rudolf Weiss sat next to her, his white Austrian face resting on her black German shoulder. They had just made love for the first time. "I heard he's against all Jews," she whispered, her stunning black locks framing a soft face with sweetly sculpted cheeks and sparkling brown eyes, their plump and seductive lashes drawing him in for another kiss. His beautiful lips lingered on her heavily painted red lips, then slid to her trembling shoulders and small but firm breasts. She felt that he wanted to make love to her again. "You are tireless," she whispered. "Maybe we shouldn't do this again for a while," he managed to say. "You must have been tired after the first time." "On the contrary, my love. It was wonderful and exceeded all my expectations. There was a little sharp pain at first, but it went away. Now I'm fine." She lay on her side, and he wrapped his warm arms around the sides of her slender body until his palms squeezed her shoulder blades. He pulled her closer, enjoying the contact of their breasts, then kissed her passionately on the lips. In the back of her brain, the latest news on the radio continued to play. She heard Hitler's speeches against Jews and how he considered them second-class citizens and racial inferiors. She also heard his mad invective against gypsies, disabled people, and blacks. He fired his first venomous arrow against Jews and blacks in particular, saying that they posed a serious biological threat to the purity of the Germanic Aryan master race. Rudolf Weiss was definitely the man of her dreams. He worked the night shift and therefore had to leave her for at least 10 hours. "You couldn't get sick?" she begged, wanting to enjoy his soulful kisses and touches all night long. Making love to her was more sweet than he had ever imagined. He looked at her with devotion and adoration. "As much as I'd like to take the night off, you know I'm a high-ranking officer and I have a lot of subordinates." She suddenly sat up, her whole figure trembling. "You could quit. You don't have to work for this party. You have a master's degree. You could teach in a high school or a university, or even—" "SHH," he whispered, placing a finger on her lips and a soothing kiss on her forehead. "What are we going to live on? As things stand now, I earn more than most men in Germany. And now that Hitler has been appointed Chancellor, he will undoubtedly consolidate his power, and the National Socialist Workers' Party of Germany will decide everything. As one of her lieutenants, I will be able to build a wonderful life for us. There is talk that I will soon be promoted to captain, and that Hitler plans to militarize our party. This is truly a wonderful future for a young man like me, and especially for a young couple like us. Soon we will get married and have children." Lee looked at him carefully. He was naive, but she had no choice but to assume he knew what he was talking about. This party of Germany was elected to power in 1932 with only 1/3 of the popular vote, and many of Hitler's policies had not yet taken effect and were completely unenforceable. Only now that he has become Chancellor will his powers be set in stone. He will no doubt find ways to do as he pleases, and this will, of course, include persecuting both Jews and blacks. Lee sighed, assessing her situation. She was not only Jewish, but also black. Her mind shuddered at the thought of what this might mean for the future of the newly formed couple, where the husband was a white Austrian and his wife was a soon-to-be outlawed Jew and a black woman. It certainly had to be considered a marriage of good and evil, a contradiction in terms and forbidden love at its worst. She sighed in the face of the damned sentence it offered. Undoubtedly, if Hitler followed his beliefs, her future husband would have to abandon her or face persecution himself. Why doesn't he see this? Why does he believe the propaganda that the newly minted Hitler will not oppress the peoples he so desperately hates? The collapse of the German economy, unlike other depressed countries, did not happen overnight. Particularly prominent in highlighting the country's economic woes were the severe restrictions imposed on it following its humiliating defeat in the First World War. But that was then, and now is now. There was a new spirit of optimism in the air in Germany, radiating waves of positive energy. Hitler promised to restore the country's financial position to its former glory days, only this time all Germans would share in the newfound wealth. Rudolf Weiss thought about this with pleasure. He's been doing very well lately. He had large shares in the Chemnitz Automobile Company and owned a construction team that negotiated lucrative contracts for the construction of new, wider roads. He was aware, like many party officers, of the plans of the new chancellor long before his appointment. Hitler's announcement in 1932 was that all roads in Germany would now be suitable for car traffic in both directions. This revival of industry caused a flurry of delight in the country. Previously unemployed workers now worked around the clock in road construction. Thriving, innovative, and disruptive, Chemnitz hired thousands of workers in record time. This ambitious company was a merger of 4 German automakers, the predecessors of what would later become known as Audi, Volkswagen, and Mercedes-Benz. Rudolf rode proudly in his Rasmussen steam car. It was an amazing feat of engineering carried out by Danish founder Jørgen Rasmussen. Most of his fellow party members did not yet have a car, and Rudolf liked to hear the note of envy in their voices every time he passed by and heard their greetings. He parked the car and got out. A group of his friends and subordinates waited nervously for him. Rudolf. Mayor, Clausen, Vager, you look sad tonight. But this isn't a night for celebration, is it? Our hero is now chancellor. Kurt Mayer put his hand on his shoulder as they walked towards the steps of the hall. My dear Mayor, I heard that you are one of those who are fighting with me for the position of captain. May the best win. I'm not competing with you, Mayer countered, and neither do any of the other candidates. Your promotion is thus guaranteed. Rudolf smiled. His personal friendship with party chairman Waldorf Schmidt certainly scared off rivals. But there are conversations. Talking? Yes, talk. I don't know how the rumor started, or how it could have spread this far, but it's going around here at the convention. Stop talking in riddles, Kurt. Just say what's on your mind. Paul Clausen, another lieutenant, turned and stood directly in Rudolf's path, blocking him. All the other dozen or so young people stopped too. The rumor is simple. They say that you are dating a Jewish woman. In fact, they say that she is living at your house at the moment. Not for long, of course, but the rumor says that she has been here for the last few days and is now staying with you. I, of course, did not believe it, but the rumors do not subside. A girl named Lee Kravitz. Is that what they say? Rudolf exclaimed, suddenly nervous and stalling for time. They say she's also black, although I don't believe that either, Paul continued. You, a purebred Austrian, blonde with blue eyes, a member of the proud white Aryan race, clinging to black skin, so hard to believe. What do you believe in? Rudolf asked, preparing for what was undoubtedly a harsh answer. I believe that a rising star of the party would never make love to any Jew or defile himself with a relationship with a colored woman. Sudden rage penetrated Randolph's usual calm. In another place and at another time, he considered it would be fitting to defend your honor by breaking your friend's jaw. But fighting with party comrades, especially with other officers, was strictly prohibited. So he ignored the blush that crossed his stoic face and sighed wearily. What I do in my personal life is none of your business. Paul stared at him in disbelief. You don't mean to say that it's true. What do you care about this? Get out of the way. Kurt Mayer put his hand on his chest. You are not just one of our group, but also the new leader of our squad. What you do in your personal life greatly affects all of us. He took out a copy of Hitler's book Mein Kampf. You know, of course, that the Jews and the blacks have conspired to try to destroy our racial purity. Our great leader Hitler says, and I quote, the Jews brought the blacks into the Rhineland with the express purpose of destroying the hated white race by inevitably producing mestizos. You've probably read this yourself many times. I know all the words to Mein Kampf by heart. What German officer doesn't? But one single black girl doesn't matter. You've got to be kidding. And when your children are part Jewish and part Negro, What then? You will be destroying the very white race you tried to protect. Rudolph's eyes glowed. He now realized that he had seriously misjudged the consequences of his relationship with the woman whom all his German comrades had come to hate and despise. "Ah, Rudolph, there you are. I wanted to talk to you," said Party Chairman Waldorf Schmidt loudly, approaching from behind with a smile from ear to ear, showing how much respect and admiration he and the party had for their new, young star. Paul and Kurt stepped aside, not wanting to interfere with the two men's business. They would continue to vent their vitriol about his forbidden romance another time. But right now, the all-powerful party chairman was in place, and his dealings with Rudolph took precedence over theirs. "You have been nominated as captain by your comrades, but in addition, due to the lack of competition, I am pleased to announce that your appointment to the new position of squad leader is already a settled matter. I am also pleased to inform you that your squad will now officially become part of the elite Waffen Forces SS. As newly appointed members of the military Schutzstaffel, you will have full and unlimited powers to carry out and enforce any and all of Hitler's new initiatives. As you know, Hitler plans to have the Enabling Act passed in the Reichstag in February or March of this year. Once this happens, he will no longer answer to the president or any other elected political parties. He will have the dictatorial power to make laws without legal challenge." Rudolph sucked in a breath. New branches of the SS received unlimited powers throughout Germany. It truly was an honor to be a part of it. Her big brown eyes were like two glowing saucers, captivating him and taking his breath away. He had been through the grinder all night and was finally glad to return home to the woman of his dreams. "How was the evening meeting and convention?" "I'd rather talk about you." He kissed her sensual lips and was instantly filled with satisfying pleasure. She gently pushed him away. "You always talk so carefully and proudly about your achievements. I see you have a new uniform, not only a captain's uniform, but also an SS uniform. I heard stories about how they are preparing to persecute Jews and isolate blacks throughout Germany. Why are you so silent about the convention? Was there a lot of anti-Semitic sentiment? They know about you and me. Is this a bigger deal than you thought? I need to leave immediately." She stood up to leave, but he grabbed her hand. "You're not going anywhere. As for my party and my colleagues, they'll just have to get used to it." An expression of undisguised bewilderment appeared on her face. For a man with such a brilliant, decisive, and prophetic mind, he clearly greatly misjudged his own situation. "As much as I love you, and I really do love you with all my heart, soul, and mind, I need to leave," she said worriedly. "Now they will watch you around the clock because they know that I am here. You must understand this, and you must also know that sooner or later they will give you an ultimatum. At least if I leave your house now, we can still meet secretly somewhere else. You will stay here with me," he insisted, his eyes blazing with affection and adoration for the love of his life. He never thought it was possible to love someone so much, and although he had only known her for a few months, his heart was already filled with a burning passion for her that seemed to be the only thing on his mind. And now that he had started making love to her, she was all that really mattered in his life. "You're always on my mind," he said. "I can't live without you. You are my every breath, every thought that passes through my mind, every beat of my beating heart. I would rather die than give up on you." His mouth was on hers again, and his warm hands clumsily slid over her half-naked body with greedy desire and passion. She helped him take off his uniform and saw a gun holster clipped to his belt. "Are you armed now?" He nodded. "My unit has been issued weapons, and we will be intensively trained in their use." "And what will you be taught to do? Shoot defenseless Jewish women and fleeing black children?" Her words were spontaneous and her nervous lips careless. She regretted what she said as soon as the words left her mouth. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I just wanted to say that. Oh, I don't know what I meant. Seeing you in that form like that strange, so hard to accept. And and a group of people in similar uniforms dragged a Jewish bookseller out of his store the other day and burned his books in a pile on the ground. They forced him to roast marshmallows over his own burning books. And now, you wear the same. She fell silent and stared ahead. She was so hopelessly in love with him that she couldn't leave even if she wanted to, and she did. "Oh God, Rudolph," she sobbed, tears streaming down her cheeks as she threw herself into his arms, her chest pressed tightly against the warmth of his taut white muscles. "Don't you see? Very soon you will be put in charge of the persecution of both Jews and blacks. I heard from my mother that a group of gypsies had a picnic in the park just last week, and a group in those same SS costumes. The military flew past and attacked. Since then, no one has heard or seen them. Don't be stupid. Moving is everything." "Have you moved? What is it?" Hitler gave his acceptance speech over the radio. He talked about what he could do if and when he pushes his enabling bill through Parliament. The Democratic Party is trying to stop him, keep him out with a 2/3 majority. He allegedly secretly killed some communist members of Parliament, and the rest are said to follow him. He also used the word relocation, only he added the words, and I wrote it down, relocation. How disgusting and perverted is this? And don't you understand? Now you're being forced to be a part of it. Soon you will have to choose, either destroy what you love, or you yourself will be destroyed. Nonsense. This message of racial purity will soon disappear. Hitler mainly focused on economic recovery and rearmament. He is working hard to make Germany a world power again. And when he receives this power, will he not seek out and destroy the same peoples upon whom he is now spewing venom in his poisonous speeches? He won't do anything like that. His focus will shift to being strong and, "I won't let anyone hurt you," he whispered, holding her closer. "Despite what you say, no one will ever harm you. They will grow to accept you as long as you are with me. This is just a dream that cannot last long. Instead of fading away, their resistance to you as one of their leaders will escalate every day, ruthless and unrelenting. They are counting on you to help lead the attack against us. Jews, do not try to marry one of them and keep her in your house as a wife." She suddenly stood up. Her breasts were attractive. Her thin waist and wide hips emphasized a figure that was simply mesmerizing. She belonged to him now, and no one could do anything about it. He wiped a tear, not wanting to hear more. "I don't want to hear about this anymore, okay?" He kissed her again, this time passionately, uncontrollably. The winter wind playfully shook his hair, playing in his long blonde curls. His deep blue eyes seemed bright and purposeful, watching her lovingly as she built the snowman higher. "I need a little carrot from the fridge for his nose. Can you get me one?" she asked. "What if I'm too lazy to come into the house and get one for you?" he challenged. "Then I'll steal yours, fool," she said with a loud laugh, grabbing his nose playfully. Light snow had begun to fall, but the temperature was not too cold and the sun was still shining brightly. "It's a really beautiful day," she whispered. "I'm having a lot of fun." She planted a wet kiss on his lips, and he brushed her long brown hair aside, enjoying the sparkle in her eyes when he released her lips and pressed his mouth to her neck, covering it under the thick woolen scarf. "Your nose is cold," she said, giggling and gently pushing him away. "Let's go inside. I want to make love to you again," he insisted. "Okay, but what will it be today, the third time?" "I have a meeting in the evening. I would like to hug you again." She wrapped her arms around his shoulders. "If you want to make love to me 1,000,000 times a day, that's fine with me too, but I think you should start using a condom regularly. It's been 2 months since you took my virginity, and you only buy condoms every now and then. You always run out. You say you'll buy more, but you rarely do. I'm terribly afraid of getting pregnant." He kissed her, then looked into her big brown eyes. "You would look amazing with a round belly. A pregnant woman is so sexy." "You can't seriously think that way, not when your own Nazi party is making venomous speeches about eradicating racial impurity. Have you thought again about what I said earlier? About leaving Germany for France or England? Both of us speak French fluently, and I know a little English. I have been practicing. I have some savings, and you said that you have. I am staying in Germany. As a newly appointed captain, I now have over 500 people under my command. I earn 10 times more than most workers. If our party becomes paramilitary, there are rumors that I might even become a general one day. Why do I want to give up all this? To prevent an attack on me. Don't you see? I am in the worst possible situation. Tensions against blacks and Jews are growing every day. We are quickly becoming second-class citizens. You're safe here in my home. No, I'm a hostage in your house. I don't dare go outside. At least here in your backyard, you have high fences. The neighbors aren't that close. I'm somehow hidden. But those who are still, they don't know about your Jewish bride. They hear gossip. A senior SS officer engaged to a black Jewish woman. You have an excellent ally in the party chairman, but as soon as he finds out about your choice of bride, he will exclude you from his ranks and make you an outcast. The party chairman is a lifelong friend of my family. He would never. The party chairman is a friend of Hitler, but Hitler is the enemy of all Jews and all blacks. The fact that someone so high in the SS wants to marry a black Jewish woman will anger him and cause him to act quickly and brutally against you. She began to cry, covering her face with her hands. Why is everyone in Germany seeing what's going on except you? We should leave while we still can. I should never have let you make love to me without a condom. There are rumors that some of Hitler's doctor friends will soon begin experiments on Jewish children. A child who will be part Aryan, part Jew, and part black will be taken from us, and no one will be able to do anything about it. Please, Rudolph, I beg you, let's get what we can and leave Germany while we still can. You say you love me, but I don't even know why I'm trying to convince you. You don't listen. You want the best of both worlds, but they won't give it to you. There will come a time when you have to. Choose whether to send me to some camp or prison, perhaps even kill me, or face cruel retribution. I tell you all the time that I won't let anyone hurt you. And I keep telling you that you won't have a choice. But if, as you say, things get better for us Jews, if we leave now, we can always come back later, after the situation improves. But if it gets worse, you can stay away. At least go away for a while so you can see from afar how the winds of change will blow. If I leave now, I will forever lose my captaincy, perhaps even be expelled from the SS and become an ordinary citizen. It is better to be a living and ordinary citizen than a persecuted or dead captain. There are also warnings in speeches that the Germans who harbor Jews or blacks should drive them out into the streets. They want to mark the houses where Jews live with a yellow star of David. They say that they want to force us to wear this yellow star on our shirts. I doubt that will ever happen, Rudolph said, his face turning red. He was determined to spend some time laughing about the day with his wonderful Leia, but all she seemed to want to talk about was her fears about the new Nazi Germany's future repression of Jews and blacks. He clenched his fists, desperate to change the subject. He took the wedding invitations out of his pocket, hoping it would distract her from Adolf Hitler's speeches and prejudices. I have a surprise for you. Here, tell me what you think. These are wedding invitations. Leia sighed, shaking her head from side to side. If you had shown them to me before Hitler became Chancellor, then, of course, I would have been the most excited woman in all of Germany, getting ready for a wedding. But now, I feel as if we are planning our own funeral. I won't skimp on the wedding, Rudolph assured her, approaching and kissing her passionately on the lips. She enjoyed his kiss until he released her, and then sighed a second time. And who are you going to send these invitations to? Your Nazi comrades, our neighbors who are scared and confused because a senior SS captain is harboring a black Jewish woman in his home for the purpose of marriage. My parents are planning to leave Germany rather than visit some kind of wedding that is doomed from the very beginning. He suddenly flared up. What do you want me to do? I told you I'm hopelessly in love with you. I can't even call off the wedding, even if I wanted to. I understand. I feel the same about you. But like I said, we could leave. We could go to France or Holland or England or wherever while we still have the chance. I don't care about the money or the fact that you're the captain. The main thing is that I'm with you, she said. Now it was his turn to sigh. He looked around the backyard and the 8-foot-tall fences. He noticed a neighbor next door on the stairs painting the second-floor windows. This seemed strange to Rudolph, knowing that the neighbor had already painted them just 6 months ago, in the fall. It's unlikely they could require painting again. She may have been pretending they needed painting just so she could get high enough to look over the fence. "You're looking at that neighbor, aren't you?" Leia said mysteriously, almost in a whisper. "She keeps looking here, watching how we kiss, how we talk. Very curious. Great harmless. That's what you say, but I'm sure she'll be gossiping as soon as she comes down those stairs. Rumors about having a black Jewish bride living at your house have already spread. Oh God, she's definitely watching. She doesn't even look away. I feel like I'm in an aquarium." Rudolph looked up and saw Greta looking. He waved to her. She responded in kind. Leia was upset. "Do you have to go to this rally tonight? Can't you send them a message and make up some excuse that you're not feeling well or something? I don't want to be alone tonight. We could go for a ride. Car out of town. Instead, there are some nice inns along the highway. We could stop by the Rhine, dip our feet in the water, run along the shore, and you can pick me wild flowers, and we can make love in the forest, behind the trees, in the long grass under the stars. Then we can sit in the calming breeze, drinking wine and watching the birds fly by in the night sky against the romantic full moon. Oh, Rudolph, this could be so much fun. I just need to get away from all this darkness, otherwise I'll just go crazy." Rudolph peered into the face of the woman he loved more than life itself. Her beautiful brown eyes filled with tears, and her anxiety hung in the air, ready to explode with despair. For the first time, he could see the panic looming on her worried face. He now felt a sharp remorse, and the wheels in his stubborn head finally began to turn, like a reluctant car engine that floundered until it started and hummed. He ignored Hitler's anti-Semitic speeches for a long time. The sounds of footsteps began to be heard in the yard. Someone was walking along the sidewalk next to the house. Kurt Mayer and his brother Paul suddenly appeared. "Heil Hitler!" Kurt shouted loudly, holding out his hand. Rudolph responded in kind. "Heil Hitler. Sorry for the intrusion, Rudolph, but this evening's meeting has been moved a few hours earlier. They want to start immediately. The participants have already been notified and are gathering in the hall. There are already 300 people there, and more are arriving. We have been sent to pick you up. Thanks for the information about the time change, but I can get to the hall myself. Thank you." The Mayer brothers interpreted Rudolph's gentle refusal as a desire to spend more time with Lee before leaving. Kurt glanced in her direction. She was definitely the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. But she was black, and according to all the rumors they heard, also Jewish. His early attempts to convince Rudolph to break up with Leia were unsuccessful. Now the captain's infatuation with her seemed to cloud his judgment. "I must inform you that Party Chairman Schmidt himself wishes to speak with you, Rudolph. In fact, he sent us to you. As you know, Waldorf is a personal friend of mine. I'm sure he'll be happy to wait until I arrive later." Paul suddenly took a step forward. His young face flushed, and a look of stunned expression spread across his face. "You have to be kidding me. Being late for a rally on purpose? This is unacceptable." Rudolph came closer to look him straight in the eyes. "When I want your opinion, I will ask about it. Tell Party Chairman Schmidt that I really do not feel well, and therefore will not be able to attend the rally tonight." "It's not that simple," Kurt replied, "and the situation is, to put it mildly, quite delicate." Rudolph sighed. "By delicate do you mean Leia?" "For that matter, yes. This Jewish girl has been the subject of much controversy today since the enabling bill was passed by Parliament this morning. Has the enabling bill passed through Parliament? Asked Rudolph. Dear Rudolph, I am sad that the captain does not know about the important events taking place in his own party. This is a historical day not only for our party, but for the whole country. You must know, Paul intervened, that the Enabling Act would give Hitler new opportunities to make all Jews in Germany second-class citizens, strip them of their property, expel them from our society, and imprison them. Rudolph clenched his fists. He was going to hit Paul. Kurt grabbed his hand. Damn it, Rudolph. You know the punishment for attacking another officer. But since we are friends, I am willing to forgive this, but you must send Leia away forever. Rudolph said nothing, still trembling with a mixture of rage and suffering. Then, after an awkward pause, he said, Leia and I are going to get married. That's what I hear all the time, Kurt said venomously in a whisper. And I keep thinking that this is some kind of joke. I talked to you about this 2 months ago, and I was sure that you would come to your senses. I never thought that you would still be thinking about such madness even this long after that, as you have been warned many times. It's none of your business. I wish it weren't my business, then I wouldn't have to deal with such a mess, but it's my business, and it's the party's business, and it's the whole of Germany's business. When you wear this SS uniform, you are expected to comply with its rules. Now that the bill has passed Parliament and we can legally do whatever we want, it will be our task to collect Jews throughout Germany and isolate them from society. Others will die. Kurt turned to Lee. You've probably heard about Hitler's plans for your people, and for you it's even worse because you're also black. I heard, and my parents and siblings have already left Germany. But Rudolph believes that Hitler will focus on rebuilding the economy and arming the army. Pavel laughed, then added, I can assure you both that Hitler's first order of business will be to expel all Jews from Germany and from anywhere the Nazi Party wants to set foot. Now Kurt fully understood that it was not Leia that prevented Rudolph from thinking clearly, but the captain's own illusions and daydreaming. He realized that further conversations with his good friend Rudolph would be fruitless. His head was firmly stuck in the clouds of love. Kurt turned to his brother. Come on, Paul. We won't get any more talk from him today. He then turned to Rudolph. We will convey your message to the party chairman this evening. The fact that he is taking a risk by making you an SS captain seems to mean little to you. However, the next time he wants to see you, know that you have your back. It's not your friends who will come, but heavily armed, high-ranking SS officers who don't care whether you live to see him or not. Then he turned to Leia. You seem like a sensible young woman, but you are a black Jew, so you will not be able to hide. You are conspicuous wherever you go. If you stay here, you will be forced to wear a yellow star, and you will be persecuted. I would advise you to follow your family out of Germany this very night. The longer you delay, the more dangerous your situation will become. Both brothers turned sharply on their heels and stomped away. Rudolph sighed and went to hug Lee, but after a minute she pulled away. Wait here. I'll be back soon. She ran after her brothers down the alley until she caught up with them at the entrance to the house. Wait. If I leave Germany tonight and promise never to return, will you still report negatively about Rudolph? Will they still send people after him to arrest him like you said? Kurt smiled. Rudolph is, or at least was, our dear friend for life. If you say that you are leaving Germany tonight, then we will not tell our party chairman what we saw and heard here tonight. And we will not even lie when we say that Rudolph is actually very sick. But if you are still here tomorrow, sooner or later you will both be arrested. You will most likely be starved to death in prison, and he will probably be shot for treason. At the very least, they will burn down his house and then put him in a mental hospital for the remaining days of his life. Please don't tell our party chairman about this. I will say goodbye to Rudolph tonight, and then leave Germany tomorrow at noon sharp and never return. Kurt nodded and extended his hand. It is strange to shake hands with a Jewish woman, but we will make this pact. Everything will be as it has always been for our good friend Rudolf, and his prestige and honor will remain intact. We comply. This is an agreement, provided that you leave, as you said, by noon tomorrow. But if not, we will return with a vengeance, and an example will be made of you. I'll be gone by noon tomorrow, never coming back, she promised. Both Kurt and Paul nodded, then jumped into their car, starting the engine until the engine howled at full blast. Leia watched them drive away until they were little dots on the horizon. Then she turned and walked slowly down the alley. His long blonde hair blew in the wind, and his warm blue eyes were like the soothing color of a gently rolling ocean. He drove the car with one hand on the steering wheel. The other one had his arm around her shoulder. Sometimes he switched gears. You still haven't told me what you told them. Leia tried to smile bravely, but couldn't. Okay, if you must know, I made a deal. What kind of deal? I'd rather not talk about it. He began to feel his temperature rising. Everything that concerns me must be discussed immediately. I promised them that I would leave Germany in the morning. He screamed at her words and turned off the road, steering the car down a dirt path until it reached the banks of the slowly meandering Rhine River that flows through Germany. He parked behind the tall maple trees, leaned back in his seat, and began to wipe away the tears as they flowed. You probably think it's strange to see a grown man in tears. Not at all, Leia answered softly. I think it's sweet and considerate. You shouldn't have agreed to that deal. If I hadn't agreed, they would have come back tonight, and they would have taken you at gunpoint to some rubber room, and I would have been dragged into some damn cell and starved to death. Their words, not mine. Rudolf began to tremble. It's all my own damn fault, he whispered. You tried to warn me over and over again, and all the signs were there, but I was blinded by love. I didn't want to see what you were saying. I didn't want to face reality. The thought of losing you was. We can still be together, Leia whispered, looking into his eyes. You didn't listen to me before, but if you listen to me now, we can stay together forever. He didn't say anything else, but simply let his gaze drift upward to a million brilliant stars. Look at me, damn it, she begged, squeezing his face and forcing their teary eyes to meet. We have until noon tomorrow. The Nazis will probably be watching your house to make sure I leave. And if I leave, they will leave too, following me to the station and onto the train to France. Once that happens, you will be safe and free, and you can return to your old life as a full-fledged captain, with all your honors. This will give you time to quietly sell the house and collect your cash and belongings. In a month or two, you can get in the car and cross the German border into France. To be with me, we can buy a small cottage. We can be happy. He still didn't say anything. And we can have those children that I know you long for me to have, Leia said. I'm so confused, he replied, breaking into tears again. I have been waiting all my life for this moment, waiting for the return of Germany's glory. And only now that it has happened, I have a choice. Either I stay and help restore my country to its former glory, or I flee this country and marry a woman whom I love so desperately. Only you can know what is more important to you, she said. But I don't want to die from the violence of greedy, Jew-hating soldiers. Rest assured, I'll be on the bus heading to the station at noon, and not a minute later. He didn't answer. Deep down, he knew that all this time he had been turning a blind eye to the facts, living in illusions. Now that the Enabling Act had been passed, Hitler no longer needed parliamentary votes to approve his horrific plans for ethnic cleansing as outlined in Mein Kampf. Jews, blacks, gypsies, and even the disabled could now be legally singled out and removed from society, interned in camps, and eventually expelled or killed. I will do as you ask, he whispered quietly. This is the only way out. I will quietly sell the house, raise the money, and then come to you in France in a month, and there we will be together forever." Her response was immediate and cordial. She covered his face with a dozen wet kisses. Then she took him by the hand and led him into the fresh air, pulling him along the sandy shore. "Take off your shoes," she suggested. He did as she asked, the moonlight reflecting off the rippling river. She took off her skirt and blouse and hung them on the tree along with his trousers. Then she helped him remove his outerwear as the sounds of crickets began to ring around. She wrapped her arms around his neck and stood on her tiptoes, vigorously kissing his attractive face. His spirit rose, and his thoughts were suddenly filled with wild joy. He found himself in her arms again. The ground under his feet was soft and elastic. "I love you," he whispered. When it was over, they lay in each other's arms for hours, looking deeply into each other's eyes and whispering about their dreams and ambitions as if it were a foregone conclusion. "Soon the dawn will come," he whispered. "Maybe we should go back. We need to pack our things and just a little more. Being in your arms is like heaven itself. I never dreamed that it was possible to love a person so much. The bank opens in a few minutes. You don't want to be late." She sighed. "It's at least half an hour's walk to the city." "No," he said, pulling a row of tram tickets from his wallet. "I'm giving out these tickets to new recruits. Take them. The tram comes to that corner every 15 minutes. It will take you to the bank in 5 minutes. Continuing along the same route, you will reach the station." "I know how to get from the bank," she said, adding a laugh. "You forgot that I lived in Germany most of my life. Maybe you'll just let me give you money for the train and whatnot, so you'll have enough until I get to France in a month." She frowned. "Don't be stupid. I have a lot of money in the bank. I'm the only one who can withdraw it. Why lose it? I'll withdraw it, buy a train ticket, and I'll have a lot more than I could need for a month in France, while I await your arrival." Cold. They kissed, and she began to shed tears. "God knows how I can survive without you for a month. If I can sell the house faster, I can leave sooner. I will do everything I can to get to France faster." "That would be wonderful," she said. "Rudolph." "Yes, my love. I want you to know how much it means to me that you are going to leave Germany and put me first." "How can I do less?" he asked. "I love you so desperately with every fiber of my being. I too will be full of desire and longing until I find myself in your arms again. You won't forget the little town outside of Nice we talked about." "How can I ever forget? It is forever etched in my memory as the place where we will be united in each other's arms again." "Then I better go," she suddenly blurted out, wiping away a fresh tear as she pulled back the curtains. "There's a car parked down the road. There are men in uniform sitting in it. They've come to make sure I'm leaving. They'll no doubt be watching me to make sure I'm getting on the train." They kissed passionately one last time, and she grabbed her bag as he opened the door for her. He watched her step out into the cool spring air, her heels clicking on the pavement as the car began to follow her to the tram stop, where she set her bag on the ground and waited. The bank seemed a little busier than usual. Lee had to wait in a long line that moved very slowly and methodically. Finally, she walked up to the counter, coming face to face with Dolores Gramsfat, an old friend of her family. "Hi, Dolores." "Ah, Leah, so good to see you again, although I assumed you left a while ago with your parents." "I stayed. I had unfinished business." "I understand. And how can I help you today?" "I would like to withdraw all funds and close my account." "I see. Well, this might be a little difficult." "Really? Why?" "The Enabling Act just passed gives the government the power to make new rules against Jews, I'm afraid." "What are the rules?" "For example, all known Jewish bank accounts have been frozen, and any withdrawals from these accounts must be approved by the government's Treasury Department. The words we hear are that approval is granted on a case-by-case basis, but that only 20% of existing funds are permitted. and recipients must sign a waiver of this 20%, which effectively transfers the remaining 80% to the government. For how long? Forever, I'm afraid. They're stealing our money. How is that possible in this day and age? Since the Enabling Act, anything against the Jews is now possible. Do you want me to put you on the waiting list? It takes 48 hours to get that 20%. What about the remaining 80%? Indeed, Miss Leia, you should listen more carefully. It is rude to force someone to repeat themselves. That remaining 80% is no longer your property forever. This is robbery. No, that's the law. But if I were you, I'd take advantage of the terms while they're still available. Rumors say that next month they'll be calling for the confiscation of 100% of all existing funds. Okay, I'll take 20. They'll still have to be held for 2 days. I don't have 2 days. I need the money now. I must leave the city immediately. As your girlfriend, I can offer you half of that 20% now, and then in 2 days, I'll get it back with your pre-signed withdrawal receipt and keep the remaining 10% for myself. Leia's face turned red. She clenched her fists as her anger began to build, but 10% of her current funds would allow her to at least buy a train ticket to France and rent a room for a week, perhaps even with some money for food. Rudolph will just have to transfer some money to her in France in the meantime. Okay, I'll take 10% now. A wise decision, Dolores declared happily. It's better to get a little now than to get nothing in the end. The tall trees seemed to whisper to each other as the wind made the branches flutter and the young trunks bend like the backs of old men. She paid no attention to the young man who was looking at her from the other side, peeking out from behind his German newspaper as if she were some long-lost relative. He caught her eye and decided to come talk. She was terrified. She had no idea who this young man could be. I'm Henry Advisor, he said happily, holding out his hand. I'm not in the habit of shaking hands with young people, especially those I don't even know. You will enjoy shaking my hand, he said, looking at her black face carefully. You black women always have such wonderful thick lips, he then remarked, grinning confidently. Keep talking, and I'll call the conductor to let him know you're bothering me. If you do this, I will have to arrest you for escaping from Germany. Leia suddenly found herself on pins and needles. Apparently, he was a member of the Nazi Party. It suddenly became clear to her that he had probably been sent to make sure she crossed the border into France. Sorry, she whispered. You're just here to make sure I leave Germany, right? That's right, he said. Well, if you wanted, we could make love before the train stops in Nice. You're going to Nice, I assume, and not Paris. That's where the train goes, she said, adding, and no, I wouldn't want to make love before the train stops. He frowned. You seem to be under the delusion of believing that you have a choice in what you do or don't do. We are still in Germany. I am still a member of the Nazi Party, and you are still a black Jewish woman with no rights. That's where you're wrong. I have the right to spit in your face if I so decide. She frowned and spat forcefully in his face. There were no soldiers or police on this train. The next stop was a small town on the border between France and Germany. Technically, she was no longer in Germany. He calmly took out a handkerchief and wiped his face. She knew she shouldn't have done this, but she also knew that if she showed even the slightest sign of weakness, he would undoubtedly take all her money, then force her to have sex for hours until the train finally reached Nice. He took a deep breath, angry, then looked around. There were only a few other passengers in the carriage they were traveling in. They were either asleep or looking the other way. Nobody looked at them, so he put his hand on her blouse and began to knead her breasts. Does this excite you as much as it excites Rudolph? I'm sure you like all German men, don't you? She reached under her skirt and pulled out a hidden straight razor, opening it with lightning speed and pressing it against his neck. Then she whispered threateningly, Dear Nazi Henry, if your job is to make sure I get to France, then that's what you should do. But if you try to touch me along the way with any part of your body, I will cut it off. Nod quickly if you understand, or I'll give you a second smile from ear to ear." He nodded. She then snapped the blade back into its metal sheath and pointed in the direction of his location, determined that he was not going to harm her if she could stop it. She was tired of being suppressed. He rubbed his neck, then returned to his seat, face flushed, without saying a word. The train whistle sounded, signaling the approach of a French town on the German border. He glared at her, but with no clear opportunity to use or offend her. He simply grabbed his briefcase and headed to the next car, deciding to get off at the next stop and end this meeting. The sprawling vineyards of France were like a breath of fresh air for Leia, especially after the Nazi spy who had been tracking her left the train. But his departure did not bring with it the consolation and relief that she had hoped for. A loud radio had just given her the news that new German laws had now driven Jews out of their civil services, university and judicial positions, and other areas of public life. These Nuremberg laws also officially made Jews second-class citizens. The Nuremberg laws defined Jews not by their religion or how they chose to identify themselves, but by the religious affiliation of their grandparents. These new laws were intended to further segregate the Jews, making their daily lives very difficult. They were now not allowed to attend public schools, go to theaters, cinemas, or resorts, live or even walk in certain areas of German cities. Jews could also be detained on site without any reason, and their property and housing confiscated for the benefit of the Third Reich. They could now also be legally detained and even detained without cause, and were not given rights of appeal or legal assistance, even though they were German citizens. The rally was filled with political energy and a fun, electric atmosphere. Everyone was talking about how Germany would become a world power again. Rudolf raised his glass for the 5th time. Laughter, drunkenness, and loud chanting of Nazi slogans dominated the evening. The wine was strong and paired well with the bourbon. However, Rudolf was wary. Even though Leia fled to France, some of his Nazi colleagues hung black dolls and mannequins of Jews from gallows and then set them on fire. "Kill all the Jews, gypsies, and blacks," was the battle cry that made Rudolf feel sick and uncomfortable. "I heard that she really went to France as she promised, so everything is fine. Only you need to get this longing for love out of your head and get involved in the program. These peoples are a threat to Germany, and the sooner they are eradicated, the better. Do you agree?" Kurt asked. "Sorry," Rudolf barely said. "I need more wine." "Run, but you can't hide. The question will still be with you when you return." Rudolf left the hall and slipped outside. He went down the steps and left. There was no point in staying and listening to his drunken comrades hurl insults at Jews and blacks. He drove to his house, where he left the lights off, just as they were when he left. "Not at the rally tonight, Rudolf." The voice made him flinch, and he turned around to see Amory Vonstein walking his dog. "I was, but I'm feeling a little sick. I decided to call it a night and get some rest." Okay. Your man Hitler is doing great things, by the way." That's true. Germany will soon become a world power again." "I have no doubt about that," agreed Rudolf. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I really need to rest." "Of course. I didn't mean to keep you. Good night." "Good night." Rudolf followed him for a short time until he went down the street with his dog. He then jumped out of the car and quickly entered his house. His first order of business was to collect all the cash he could find in the house. Then he went upstairs, threw the suitcase on the bed, and filled it with clothes. In the morning, he will inform his agent about the sale of the house. He stuffed the accumulated money into his pocket, quickly ate a sandwich and a pint of beer and grabbed his suitcase, ran out into the car, and headed to the station. Just before he got there, he stopped with an old friend who was interested in buying his car. He offered him a good price and watched anxiously as he handed him cash and a check that could easily be cashed at a French bank. He then asked a friend to drive him the rest of the way to the station. He sat patiently on a wooden bench. In 90 minutes, the midnight train to France was due to arrive. He smiled and sighed with relief. By morning, if all went well, he would be in the arms of the woman he loved. As the morning light began to filter into the room, Leia woke up to find that most of the other prisoners were already up. She was told that the sudden increase in the number of Jews fleeing Germany had left the French government perplexed as to what to do with them. "They won't let us stay in France," someone began to spread. "Where did you get this information?" Leia asked, feeling her heart get heavier as she started to get nervous. "Isn't it obvious? They won't let us leave the station and won't let us into France. Therefore, they'll probably send us back to Germany on the next train and get rid of us. They see us as a problem." Leia was cautiously optimistic after speaking with the man. He had no real confirmed sources, only rumors, speculation, and outright guesses. For all he knew, they could be allowed to leave the station at any time. Rudolph lit a cigarette as he got off the train. He didn't usually smoke, but he was nervous. Rumors that spread on the train he was traveling on said that many of the large number of Jews who reached France were being detained. Some were even sent back to Germany. Now he wondered if Leia was one of those detainees. She could have made it to Nice, but she could also be somewhere behind the glass partition pulled out of the previous crowd that had arrived. He decided it was worth checking it out. He walked confidently towards a small wooden table and a group of armed guards blocking the large glass double doors of the detention center. His French was impeccable and his German ID was impressive. He was a high-ranking officer of the ruling Nazi party. He was immediately let through so he could see the head of operations. He explained his situation. "I was looking for a woman and wondering if it was possible that she had been detained." His story was that she was wanted in Germany on criminal charges, and he was sent to find her and bring her back to Germany to stand trial. The supervisor accepted his impressive credentials and his story, and told him that he could walk through the center and look for his prisoner, then take her out of the holding facility and take her back to Germany to face her fate. "I can't believe you found me," Leia said, tears of joy streaming down her face. She longed to kiss him. "Not yet. Remember, you are supposed to be my prisoner. When will you accompany me from the center?" "Once we get out, they won't be following my movements. We can stay at the station and take any train we choose, to any direction, or we can enter France and take a short bus ride to the city of Nice. Whatever we want." They finally reached the gate. The woman at the desk and the operations manager he was talking to told the soldiers to let him and his prisoner outside. The little cottage was on the seashore in the city of Nice, overlooking the blissful waves that waxed and waned with luxurious carelessness. A wide variety of birds chirped tirelessly among the proud bushes and languid, waving elms that graced the tranquil shore. Lee absolutely adored the place and looked for every opportunity to show off her secluded, stunning French home to family and friends who had also fled Germany. Rudolph was torn in some ways, but knew deep down that he made the right choice by leaving a country that sought to destroy the only woman he had ever loved. His mind now focused on helping those who were still suffering in the clutches of a tyrannical government that was becoming more vicious and cruel every day. He began an underground movement that would become the basis for what would later become known as the French Resistance, a fledgling brave group that became adept at eliminating the Germans who sought to occupy his new homeland. For now, however, his main focus was on the woman next to him, her long, silky hair, like woven threads of fragrant heaven, enchanting him as he kissed her sweet neck and shoulders, enchanted by the dark satiny skin that admired his kisses and wandering fingertips. The fading sunlight gave way to a glowing moon and bright stars that crashed into the sensual darkness like diamond beacons of light. "I'm pregnant," she whispered in his ear, stunning his mind and sending his senses spinning. "I love you," he managed to say as the sounds of the fresh tidal wave echoed across the wooded beach. "I found a priest to get us married this Saturday," she was able to say. Everything was as it should be, and even the growing tide of evil emanating from rotting Germany could not darken her spirit. She escaped tyranny and certain death and found true happiness in the arms of a man who adored her for who she was, a helpless romantic soul forever in love. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.